Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for October 24th, 2025. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's start with Zion's Bank and an article from 2023 that says, in the summer of 1873, months ahead of an event that would mark the start of a full-blown U.S. financial crisis, President Brigham Young of The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints called a meeting of local leaders to discuss organizing a new savings bank, a local institution that would create a financial safe haven for residents, many of whom had trekked into the Utah Territory during the previous 26 years. Just over a month after that first meeting, on August 6, 1873, articles of association were filed to create Zion's Savings Bank and Trust Company, and a few weeks later the Deseret News reported on President Young's optimistic outlook for the new endeavor. That early confidence would turn out to be well-founded, as Zion's Bank and Trust, which officially opened for business on October 1, 1873, would outlast most of its competitors of the era, and this year, which was 2023, will celebrate its 150th anniversary. In 1877, hundreds of businesses and banks shuttered their operations, tens of thousands lost their jobs, and a period of national financial distress, now referred to as the Long Depression, lasted until 1877. But Zion's Bank and Trust would weather that storm and many others on its way to growing into regional banking powerhouse Zion's Bank Corporation, a multi-brand financial institution that now boasts more than 400 branches across 11 western states. Zion's Bank is a division of Zion's Bank Corporation. The secret to its longevity and success? Bank leaders say it's all about staying true to the company's humble roots, even as it has become one of the leading financial institutions in the country. For its first 87 years, the bank was owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and in those decades, the bank's story closely paralleled the growth of the church. Zion's Bank President CEO Scott Anderson said, "Up until 1957, the bank had a succession of non-traditional bank presidents, all of them leaders of the church. The appointment as bank president was generally a lifetime position for them, corresponding with their tenure as church president and prophet." In 1960, a group of investors led by Roy W. Simmons bought out the church's majority ownership of the bank. This, Anderson said, began the bank's modern era and marked the beginning of a period of rapid expansion. Strange to me that it expanded after it was not under Jesus' care anymore. Back to the article. Simmons took on the role of chief executive in 1964, and 2 years later the company went public in a stock offering that helped raise capital to fuel growth and created a new parent entity that would become Zion's Bank Corporation. At the time Simmons acquired the bank, it was 4 branches and offices in Salt Lake City with total assets of around $120 million. By 1970, it had grown to 25 branches throughout the state and boasted assets of $300 million. That was also the year Roy Simmons' son, Harris, started his first job at the bank, working part-time filing canceled checks. Harris Simmons would continue putting in his time at the family business, working when time allowed during his undergraduate years at the University of Utah, and, side note, as a young man, Harris Simmons served a 2-year LDS mission in Sweden. Back to the article. Harris Simmons would pursue postgraduate work outside of the state, earning an MBA from Harvard Business School. In 1981, he was back, taking on the role of Chief Financial Officer for Zion's Bank Corporation. And 9 years later, he took over the CEO helm from his father. In a Deseret News interview, Harris Simmons said that early on in the bank's history, President Young predicted that Zion's Bank and Trust would eventually expand throughout the Utah Territory, an area whose borders encompassed most of Utah, Nevada, and Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming, New Mexico, Colorado, and California. As it turns out, that's exactly what would come to pass, and then some. We are the steward of many billions of dollars of savings that belong to many, many individuals and businesses in the markets we serve, Harris Simmons said. We're employing those savings in investments in those communities, investments that make them better places to live, and our people are highly engaged in terms of being involved in the communities where they live and work. The most appealing part of the banking business to me is we're in a position to use a balance sheet as well as our people to solve problems, and we hope we've been a real contributor over the years and will be for many years to come. Now, I went down a huge rabbit hole with Zions Bank that revealed a fascinating historical pattern. The bank and its various branches have been formerly dedicated by a remarkable succession of church presidents and apostles, including figures as historically significant as Brigham Young, George Q. Cannon, Joseph Fielding Smith, Gordon B. Hinckley, and Thomas S. Monson. The church news article detailing Monson's dedication in 2010 says, prior to offering the prayer to dedicate the Zions Bank and Financial Center, President Monson commented, "You can rest assured that this church doesn't put its investments and its confidence in anything that isn't stable, honorable, and has a record of performance and integrity." In dedicating the building, President Monson prayed, "May it ever be a bright and shining star in the business community of Provo, and may its influence extend far and wide." Also of note is that the church in 2020, when it disclosed its Wall Street holdings for the first time, reported owning $91.8 million of stock in Zions Bank. Now let's go to the more recent news about Zions Bank. Market Chameleon says Zions Bank Corporation has become the subject of a securities fraud investigation following a recent $50 million charge-off related to a loan at its subsidiary, California Bank and Trust. This disclosure, which came to light through a Bloomberg article published on September 16, 2025, cited that Zions and Western Alliance banks faced substantial losses due to loans linked to alleged fraud. In the aftermath, Zion's stock experienced significant volatility and increased investor attention. I read through numerous articles about this, and I do not know a lot about banking or stocks. But from what I understand, feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I will not be bothered. Zions Bank Corp is facing a securities fraud investigation because it had to take a sudden $50 million loss, which is called a charge-off in the banking world, on a loan at its subsidiary, and investors believe the bank intentionally hid this major risk. The core problem is the alleged lack of transparency. The bank may have misled shareholders by presenting its financial health as stable while concealing the fact that they allegedly knew the loan was likely to fail. This secrecy is considered securities fraud because it caused the stock price to remain artificially high, leading to significant investor loss when the bad news finally became public. The investigation's goal is to determine if Zion's management deliberately concealed the information, highlighting widespread concerns about the bank's internal risk controls and governance. Well, let's hope that a prophet, God's mouthpiece on earth, a seer, a revelator, Thomas S. Monson, wasn't wrong when he said that folks could rest assured when it came to Zions Bank. Now let's learn about the Cozzens family. Paul Cozzens is currently on the commission for Iron County, Utah. His Facebook page is littered with temple pictures, quotes from LDS leaders and Donald Trump, and his campaign website gives the following background. Paul was one of 7 children raised in Moab, Utah, by parents who instilled in each of them a strong work ethic. His mother was a stay-at-home mom, and his father was a civil engineer and excavation contractor. Paul graduated high school in 1980 and moved to Cedar City, Utah to attend SUSC. With a half-tuition scholarship and a few bucks in savings, he hoped to find a job. Employment was secured at a local company where he gained valuable training and learned about manufacturing and installing millwork. This employment allowed Paul to put himself through school, as his parents forbade him from applying for any government grants. In 1981, Paul served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Australia. Following his mission, Paul returned to school and work in Cedar City. Soon after his return, he met Mary Coles. They were married in 1984. I couldn't find any information on whether or not they were married in the temple, but I'm going to guess that they were. The site goes on to say they have been blessed with 3 wonderful sons and 2 beautiful adopted daughters from China. Paul and Mary love Iron County and enjoy being involved in the community. Paul served as district chair for the Cedar Breaks district of the Boy Scouts of America for 3 years. I also found out that one of Paul's daughters, Brinley, served an LDS mission in New Zealand starting in 2022. And Paul's son, Blake, has been in the news a lot. Back in February of 2018, Blake was arrested during a prostitution sting by St. George Police and the Department of Homeland Security and charged with a Class A misdemeanor, patronizing a prostitute, according to information filed in 5th District Court by the Washington County Attorney's Office. Blake responded to an advertisement soliciting acts for money placed on Backpage.com by a confidential informant, according to the probable cause statements filed by St. George Police in support of the arrest. Blake negotiated acts in exchange for money in text messages with the confidential informant, according to court documents, and was arrested after meeting at a prearranged location and paying between $100 and $150 for the acts they had discussed. Blake was transported and booked into the Washington County Purgatory Correctional Facility. Prior to the sting operation, Blake Cozzens held the position of Iron County Republican Party treasurer. Next on the timeline, on May 8th of 2022, Blake was sealed to Danilin in the Provo City Center Mormon Temple. Then in March of this year, Blake popped up in the news again, facing multiple felony charges following an investigation that uncovered alleged financial irregularities involving a homeowners association account. Blake Floyd Cozzens, 35, was arrested and charged with 10 counts of unlawful fiduciary dealing, each a second-degree felony. Authorities allege that Cozzens misappropriated more than $1.9 million from accounts belonging to a Cedar Bend Homeowners Association account he managed through his business, Stress-Free Property Management. The charges stem from an investigation into discrepancies reported by the HOA as it prepared to transition control from the developer to property owners. Cozzens was the sole signatory on several accounts registered under the HOA's name, court records stated. Bank records revealed numerous large transactions, including a $400,000 wire transfer that was returned days later and a $325,000 withdrawal. With some funds reimbursed, investigators said they believe Cozzens ultimately misappropriated over $1.9 million. By November 30th, 2024, both accounts were reportedly empty, despite the expectation of significant reserve funds remaining, the affidavit stated. Cedar City Police executed a search warrant at Stress-Free Property Management following Cozzens' arrest. Details of the search have not been released. Additionally, the affidavit references concerns about possible threats directed at the public and family members related to the ongoing investigation. The defendant has also caused multiple members of the public to fear for their lives and those of their families if he is released, to the point they want to leave town, the affidavit states. Given the seriousness of the offenses, the totality of financial loss suffered by the victim being over $1.9 million, with much still potentially outstanding, and the defendant's threats to himself, members of the public, and law enforcement, it was requested that he be held without bail. Then, to complicate this arrest, Blake's dad, Paul, visited the jail to speak with staff about his son's medical needs, and an internal investigation concluded that Paul Cozzens asserted his authority while speaking with employees, leaving some feeling pressured and concerned about their job security. Paul Cozzens arrived at the jail where, according to his statements during the February 24th Iron County Commission meeting, he attempted to bring distilled water for his son's CPAP machine after receiving a call from Blake Cozzens saying he was running low. Cozzens said he and his wife, Mary Cozzens, purchased the water at a local store and went to the jail to deliver it, but they were told by staff that outside items could not be accepted for inmates. It's been kind of a hard process because I'm a commissioner and having a son incarcerated. I don't know all the rules. I've learned a lot, but Mary and I ran to Lynn's that night, bought a gallon of distilled water, took it up to the jail, rang the doorbell, Cozzens explained during the commission meeting Monday. According to an internal report prepared by Iron County Human Resources Director Jennifer Bradbury, multiple jail employees stated that Cozzens asserted his authority during his visit, reminding them that he was responsible for building the jail. Bradbury noted statements submitted by staff sharing their feelings of discomfort after Cozzens' visit. The employees interpreted his actions as an attempt to influence jail operations, and others expressed concerns about potential retaliation if they did not comply with his requests, the report states. During Monday's Iron County Commission meeting, Cozzens publicly addressed the controversy, becoming emotional as he reflected on the toll it has taken on his family. I know I didn't handle the situation well that night. As you can imagine, Mary and I were both extremely emotional. I was deeply concerned for my son's health, and I reacted inappropriately, but never did I threaten anyone's job, Cozzens said. I apologize then and I apologize now for my actions. I've said plenty of foolish things in my life, and I'm sure I'll say more. But one thing I will never apologize for is being a father, loving my son, and doing my best to protect his health by taking some distilled water for his sleep apnea machine that night. Cozzens also defended the county's law enforcement and jail staff, stating that he supports them and never intended to criticize their actions. And then, yes, there is more. On October 19th, 2025, Fox 13 published the following. A former Iron County Republican Party chairman who was arrested Saturday on charges of kidnapping and abusing his wife is denying the allegations from jail, claiming prosecutors are overreaching in their case against him. Blake Cozzens called Fox 13 News from Purgatory Jail in Hurricane to dispute the charges filed by Washington County prosecutors. According to charging documents, Cozzens was driving with his wife Danilyn and their 3-year-old daughter on I-15 near New Harmony on July 1st when he became violent, leaving her on the roadside before forcing her back into the car. Cozzens said in a call that he and his wife both struggled with each other in the car and that she asked to step out in the first place. I did not leave her on the side of the road, rather I pulled ahead so traffic could go by, Cozzens said. Through her attorney, Danilyn maintains that she was forced back into the vehicle. Cozzens acknowledged that another driver called 911 but said he didn't know why. The Washington County Attorney's Office said it appreciates law enforcement coordination in the arrest and plans to move forward with the case. A first hearing is expected within the week. Some people ask why I sometimes focus on stories about individual members instead of the church system as a whole. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints claims to be the only church on earth with divine authority, modern prophets, and the ordinances necessary for exaltation. This unparalleled claim implies that its members are uniquely blessed, guided, and prepared to live a superior moral life. When individuals who have fully participated in this system, served missions, been sealed in temples, and held leadership positions, display repeated and severe ethical, financial, and legal failures, it creates a fundamental contradiction. If having the only true church doesn't produce measurably better conduct than the secular world, what is the value of that claim? Next, let's go to Yahoo, where it says Heather Gay is digging into the Mormon religion in her new Bravo Limited series. The network has announced the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City Star's new project, Surviving Mormonism with Heather Gay, which will air in 3 parts beginning Tuesday, November 11th. According to the press release, each episode will follow Gay, 51, as she uncovers the dark history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The 3-part limited series fractures the church's seemingly perfect veneer to expose the secrets that have been kept behind closed doors, the official synopsis reads. In each hour-long episode, Heather has impactful conversations with abuse survivors, ex-Mormons, and former LDS church leaders. As Heather reflects on her own departure from the church, Surviving Mormonism delves into outdated and controversial practices and empowers victims to share their experiences to bring awareness and enact change, the synopsis concludes. Will you be watching? Because I certainly will. Now let's go to Rise Zion on YouTube to talk about the Second Coming. The video that I'm going to discuss has over 29,000 views, and I've noticed this all over YouTube. Pro LDS content creators know they will get a ton of views if they hint that the brethren are giving even the most subtle nod that Jesus is at our doorstep and is about to knock. The original video is 26 minutes. We are not going to listen to even close to all of it, but let's start with the intro.
Ever since we received solid confirmation that the apostles and prophets have been instructing local leaders to prepare their wards and stakes for the Second Coming, I've been asking all of you out there in the audience to send me letters reporting on what was talked about. Over these past few months, we've had some truly fascinating reports that are just adding to this growing body of evidence that right now the main focus and the urgency of the church is preparing a people ready to receive Jesus Christ at his second coming. And we're collecting these data points that prove that right now this has been the main focus. One of the themes in these conferences is usually talking about the second coming very explicitly.
I wish that those who send in reports of these state conferences would also secure audio or video recordings. I suspect certain apostles or general authorities or Area 70s are strategically using excitement-generating yet ambiguous phrases when presiding at local meetings, knowing the saints will disseminate the rumors. They are relying on the church's informal communication network, the Mormon rumor mill, to spread the messages while simultaneously ensuring no verifiable official evidence exists of their precise remarks.
They say, hello, Seth, I have another state conference report. Elder Thaddeus M. Brown of the 70 presided over this state conference. The topic was heavily focused on missionary work. My stake has been teased about how elderly many of the stake members are. Most everyone here had a walker. Even the woman who sat next to me, who was in her late 60s, made the comment about how old the stake is. So it wasn't surprising to hear missionary work being directed to the seniors. We were reminded that no matter the age, we need to help hasten the work, even if it feels inconvenient.
I excluded the host's remarks, but he then transitioned into an exploration of how the talk of missionary work itself serves as an understated yet intentional allusion to the impending second coming.
Elder Brown, they wrote, spoke about having an intimate relationship with Christ. He went over 3 Nephi chapter 11, verse 14, which says, quote, "Arise and come forth unto me, that ye may thrust your hands into my side, and also that ye may feel the prints of the nails in my hands and in my feet, that ye may know that I am the God of Israel and the God of the whole earth, and have been slain for the sins of the world." Elder Brown explained that when we meet people, we give a friendly handshake or maybe even a hug, but to touch somebody's side is intimate. And that is what Christ is inviting us to do, not only to touch, but to thrust our hands into his side. Elder Brown says, because God knows each and every one of us intimately, we are to choose our covenants and to bind ourselves to Christ.
Really? With the intimacy and the thrusting and the binding?
They write, many people were left in tears after Elder Brown's talk, but this is where the meeting became exciting. As everyone was getting ready to leave, I received a text message from my stake president asking me to come and meet Elder Brown personally. He wanted me to briefly share my testimony and why I chose to come back to the church. I have been inactive for close to a decade. After I shared a small portion of my testimony and story, I brought up witnessing many signs of the second coming. Elder Brown said, oh yes, the prophet has instructed the quorums to prepare all of the stakes for the second coming, and that many of the prophecies have and are being fulfilled, that we truly are in the last days, and each stake is being prepared accordingly. I was so delighted to hear this from Elder Brown, and now I can testify and add to what you've been saying on your podcast, referring to me.
He is going to say this later, but this report was given September 6th, which would have been before Russell Nelson died, so the prophet at this time would have been Russell Nelson.
The next day, the writer of this email sent me a follow-up email for the Sunday session of their state conference. Let's continue. They say, hello, Seth. This morning's state conference was once again focused on missionary work and the blessings of the temple. Much was spoken about how to be a disciple of Christ, the blessings of the temple, and following a covenant path, that we are to replace fear with faith. Today, Elder Brown mostly shared personal stories. He quoted from James E. Faust, "Faith is the power, obedience is the price, love is the motive, the Spirit is the key, and Christ is the reason." He asked us what the origins of our testimonies were. He then shared a story about how he gained his. At the very end of his talk, he said, and this is very significant, you guys, that he was on a special assignment from Elder Holland to prepare the people for the second coming, that we are in the 11th hour, and that the Lord is in this work. He ended with his testimony of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. It was written on September 6th of 2025.
So this information allegedly came from Russell Nelson to Jeffrey Holland to Mr. Brown. And now almost 30,000 people have watched this video and are super hyped up about the second coming. Years ago, during the blessing of my newborn niece, who is now in her mid-20s, my brother-in-law spontaneously declared that she would live to witness the second coming of Christ. The statement immediately drew audible gasps throughout the congregation and became a topic of hushed, reverent discussion within our family for months afterward. The church leverages this kind of prophetic fervor to enforce present-day compliance. By positioning the current generation on the cusp of Christ's return, the urgency of worthiness becomes paramount. This focus on the immediate eschatological climax serves as a powerful coercive tool, ensuring members remain fully committed and compliant to secure their place in that final triumphant event. Now let's go to HJ News, where it says a 50-year-old Logan man was arrested Monday on felony burglary and property destruction charges after allegedly stealing thousands of dollars worth of copper wire from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Seminary building under construction at Logan High School. Roland Lamb Glines faces charges of second-degree felony burglary, third-degree felony property damage, and 2 counts of misdemeanor theft, according to the probable cause affidavit. The electrical contractor contacted the Logan High School resource officer about a theft at the new seminary building construction site on October 11th. The contractor reported that someone had entered the building and cut wiring connected to the interior control panels, according to the affidavit. Given the recent spike in fires and security incidents targeting Latter-day Saint meeting houses, I think it is time for the church to demonstrate responsible stewardship of its substantial financial reserves. These structures are the material result of sacred tithing funds contributed by even the most destitute of members, and the church must dedicate a portion of its billions toward implementing robust security measures to protect both the buildings and the safety of the saints who gather in them. Now let's go to Facebook for a little update about the last BYU football game. When BYU fans stormed the field following a dramatic 24-21 Holy War win over the Utah Utes, Crumble CEO Jason McGowan stepped up to pay any fine assessed by the Big 12. I already talked about this, but here's what happened next. With no fine imposed, McGowan announced that money will now benefit the program through NIL funding. And because of your overwhelming support and inspired by Kalani's love for his opponents, every bit of student lunch debt in Provo City and Salt Lake City school districts for all schools was wiped out this morning, McGowan said. Love you, Cougar Nation. I'm still not going to be eating any crumble cookies because I really don't like them, but good job. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, I heard a therapist say, people who need therapy don't come to us, their victims do, and I cannot stop thinking about it. And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.